Okay, well, I think I'll go ahead and get started by welcoming our presenter. So, Anna Di Nicolo, thank you so much for joining us today. This is volunteer programs that work for organizations and volunteers, practical strategies for literacy agencies. So, um, so Anna joins us. With a wealth of background. She is currently an independent consultant specializing in adult education program management for English language learners. She does digital literacy development and volunteer program consulting. She is an experienced bilingual trainer and facilitator, writer, and publications manager, and for over 10 years directed the Gilchrist Immigrant Resource Center in Maryland. Her current work includes development of a life skills training program, editing and preparing a parent leadership training guide, advising county leadership on a digital skills program, and designing a training workshop for English conversation instructors. So, Anna, we are so happy to have you and we welcome you, and I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Thank you so much, Robin. I'm so glad to be here. As I mentioned, I'm just thrilled to see how much Wisconsin is doing for this very important part of our community. So I wanted to get started by learning a little bit about what you all, your experience and who you work with so that I can customize our presentation today. And so I'm going to ask Robin, she's going to launch a poll. And if you could please respond, and then that'll help me see, where you're at. If you have a lot of experience, if you're already working with volunteers or you're thinking about it. So because I also want to make this time an opportunity for us all to learn from each other. If you have been working with volunteers, um, you know, you'll have experiences that others can learn from. So thank you. I see people are starting to answer. While you're doing that, I'll just mention that um, I work in I'm based in, I should say, Montgomery County, Maryland, where we have a very large proportion of immigrant community members. 33% of our adult population are foreign born. 41% speak a language other than English at home, and about 15% speak English less than very well. I'll also say that when I was, for that 10, 11 years that I was working at the Gilchrist Immigrant Resource Center, I worked part-time and had only volunteer instructors. And as a part-timer, in which only a small part of my job was managing the classes, I would have 40 plus volunteers at one time, just so that you can, get a little sense of how I might be able to relate to your experience. And because we had a very, very successful time working with volunteers and a high retention rate, when I left my position, I started to research and learn, what did we do right? Because we didn't know what we were doing. We figured it out as we went along. Because as I imagine might be the case for some of you, I did not have any training in becoming a program manager for a literacy program. This is something that I, found myself in. And so when I did that sort of self-reflection of what did we do right, I did some research and I figured out that a lot of things that we fell into were helping us. And that's why I decided to start focusing on this to share our recipe, share our experience with others, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I think so we have about 19 that have participated. Maybe we should wrap that up. Oh, 20, 21. Okay, let's give it a couple more seconds and then we'll go ahead and finish the poll and we'll see who's in the room. Oh, I will also mention if you have questions as we go along, please put them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll all try. We've got great help from Wisconsin Literacy here. So if I miss something, hopefully they'll call my attention to it and we'll try to answer your questions. Thanks. Let's go ahead and wrap up the poll. Okay, so we've got um uh we don't use words. Okay, new. So we got about a split between used volunteers for many years and going very well. And we don't have anybody that's not using volunteers, but one person is new. Okay. Um, Most of our volunteers are tutors. Okay, that's helpful to know. And then we've got a pretty wide range between across the sizes of our organizations, representing all of them. And say similar, we've got a small team for about half managing the volunteers. That's wonderful, good for you. And then some of our groups are just our volunteers managing other volunteers. So that's truly a challenge and thank you for your efforts. All right, we're gonna stop and thank you for answering that. And we're gonna keep going. So today, what what I hope we can cover is to understand the alignment between your program needs and capacities and the volunteer needs and capacities. That's kind of where what we're all about when we say we need a volunteer program that works for the volunteers and for the program. There's got to be an alignment. Um, we're going to learn about what motivates volunteers and also gain awareness of what programs can do to increase volunteer retention, especially keeping in mind, as we've just learned, that most of you do not have very much staff, right? Or probably money. So, and then I'm hoping we'll have an opportunity for you to take a few minutes and evaluate your own program's practices, because I know like once you leave this little space, you'll be off and running on lots of other your to-do list. But if you can take a few minutes and maybe pick one or two things that you're going to work on. So you might have experienced this at some point. You know, maybe you're talking to your supervisor or the board of your organization, and they're like, "Well, if you need help, why don't you just get a volunteer?" So I'm gonna just see if I don't know if you guys are on camera. What do you think of that? Like, is that crazy? Just get a volunteer. So it's so easy. I have heard that before, and some supervisors are easier to talk to than others, but it's if you've worked with volunteers, it's not like that. They can make a big difference. They certainly can, and I can attest to that from our programs. But you have to make an investment. So, and that's a pretty serious investment. I gotta there. So we've got to analyze what are our program's needs and what are our program's capacities to manage and support the volunteers. And then what are the volunteers' needs and what are their capacities? And sometimes, like I noticed that in our poll, that most of you have your volunteers working as tutors. But it could be that you have that there might be a volunteer that's not great at being a tutor, doesn't want to, is not that interested in that, or their schedule doesn't allow it. But perhaps they might be helpful in an administrative role. Maybe they have that capacity, and that could help. Of course, that also requires training and support. Not denying that. So in terms of our program needs, we need to evaluate, and I'm just going to do this quickly because I know most of you are already using volunteers, but for our newer members, where do we need help? And even if you've been using volunteers for a long time, maybe it's time to take a look. Are there different places? Is there data entry? Is there, maybe greeting people at the door or setting up classrooms? Maybe there are different ways that you can use volunteers. One key thing is going to be how independent it is. Are special skills needed? Are there confidentiality or privacy concerns in the role, which of course there are with tutors and instructors? And then how are you going to deal with that? And who can you choose that can accommodate those program needs? When do you need them? How long do you need them? Do you really need a year commitment? Could a 6-month commitment be okay? Who will be responsible? Because volunteers do need a person. And then is it possible to accommodate different schedules? So in terms of our management capacities, and you all who are already doing this probably have covered this, but if you haven't, you do need, every organization needs to set policies and procedures. We're going to talk about this, some of these today, like especially volunteer selection criteria, interviewing. Do you have a list of interview questions that's standard? Do you have a standard system for checking references or vetting your volunteers? Of course, publicizing, recruiting new volunteers for you to select from, orienting your volunteers. There's so many things. And of course, we're just talking about volunteers now, right? Not even your students. And so just to reiterate, they're not free. There's in addition to all of those things we just talked about, their volunteers need to take vacations. They might have illnesses or last minute crises. They may leave if they're there just to complete a practicum or service hours. Sometimes it can be challenging to let them go. And sometimes there are personalities and you have to figure out how to deal with them or if you want to. Okay, but it still can be worth it if you can get them to stay. So if they stay, they're going to help you build a strong reputation. There's going to be trust for your students. You're going to get more word of mouth referrals from your students because they trust your teachers and they know like, oh, you know, they'll tell their sister or their cousin or their friend or their neighbor, oh, you gotta go to this program. My tutor was amazing. And she's still there. She needs another student. Resilience, efficiency, and impact. And on the flip side, if you have high turnover of your volunteers, that will undermine student engagement, especially with classes, but I would think that with tutors as well. Of course, with our what we're talking about today is what we can control, right? Because there are certainly challenges outside of our control. We have, as program managers or administrators, we have limited funds, limited staff, limited time. We might not have had much professional development before we joined got started in this field, as I didn't. And the system might be old. And at the same time, your volunteers might have family issues, financial pressures. There's all kinds of challenges. All right. So now what we would like to do, and I want to just get a sense, is get a sense from you all. What is we now understand, or hopefully we've got a sense of like, okay, we need, the programs need to understand what they need, what they have to be able to provide. Let's start to understand our volunteers. So if you all could either shout out, you can go off mute or put in the chat. What are some reasons why people like to volunteer or volunteer for you? They want to make a difference in the lives of others. Yes. Anybody else? Oh, here we go. Retired, be part of the community, retired and have extra time to fill, give back, support community, gives purpose, fulfillment, share their expertise, stay engaged. Yes. Yes. Thank you very much. They just want to give back. Yep, let's see what I had here. They love to teach. They enjoy getting to know people from other cultures. Yeah, very consistent. Appreciate language. Some people do it because they love language, want to give back. A lot of you guys said that. Some people are volunteering. My experience with instruction is because they want to get some experience and teach overseas. Um, Career exploration, build resume. Okay, Carlene says their family member came to our organization to learn English and now they want to volunteer. That's great. That's great. New to community, want to reach out to establish new networks. You know, one of my long-term volunteers, she volunteered for me for over 10 years. She started because she had just moved to our area and she stayed because that became her community of friendship. The other teachers that uh student to employee situation, yeah, to employee situation, yeah, sometimes learning. Some people are lonely. Okay, we talked about, yep, service learning, college student, complement their day job. The first time I volunteered, it was because my day job was not satisfying. So, thank you all for sharing all that. So now what I'd like to ask you to do, I'm going to share in the chat. I'm going to share a link and I'm going to grab it here to a Padlet. And if you have any questions about using the Padlet, I will give you a hand. Just let us know. But if you can go to the Padlet, and on the far left, I've got two questions, and they're also on the screen right now. So I'd like for you to imagine, okay? Imagine and really get out of yourself. You can even close your eyes. And this is so sorry, I forgot to mention. If your last name is A through L, you're Marie. And if your last name is M through Z, you'll be Tony. Okay. So so A through L folks, imagine you're Marie. You just retired. You were a teacher for 30 years. And you're really excited to start volunteering and getting involved. So you've got all this like anticipation, you're eager, and you saw an announcement for looking for a tutor position. Um, Now think about Marie is applying to your agency. How quickly do you hear back from the agency? Like Marie has submitted her application. What happens then? And how does that make her feel? Does anybody respond? Is there someone she can talk to? How soon can she get started? Is there going to be training? Now, think about how she feels, and please go on the Padlet and put in some comments, one or two thoughts about how she might be feeling about her response, the response she's getting from your agency. Now, folks that are M through Z, same thing. You're Tony. You've been tutoring for 6 months. What's the last time you heard from your agency? How does the agency help you learn new techniques? If you have a problem, how quickly do people respond to you? And if you can go ahead in the Padlet and put in your comments Okay, I'm starting to see some. Yeah. So imagine how people feel. And if it, and let's try to get specific is if they get a response quickly, what kind of response is it? Is it an auto response or is it personal? Is it how do the does the do the does Marie or Tony get a person? Is there a name? Do they feel connected? It's going to give you a second. All right. Okay. Now I don't see any Tonys. Who feels like who's imagining their Tony? If you want to just put it in the chat, you can do that too. Or you can just go off mute. Sorry. Oh, Tony's feeling lonely. Okay. All right. I'll give you one more minute. Come on, folks. Feel free also to use the chat. All right. All right. So let's just chat about it. Thank you all for sharing. So the our volunteers are human beings just like us. And yeah, here someone said in the chat, Janet, Marie may feel unappreciated if the responder from the agency does not sound welcoming and glad to meet her with her. Yes. So I'm encouraging you to put yourself in your volunteer's shoes because we need them, right? Our programs cannot succeed without our volunteers, without our instructors and our tutors. We need our tutors and instructors. We have very limited resources. So we have to find the right people and then we have to keep them. Otherwise, I mean, in my experience, you cannot run your program. I had no money to pay anyone. And I found that I actually had better retention than a lot of other programs that paid their teachers because we helped them feel connected. And I'm just going to go through some of what some of you all said here, understanding our volunteers from the perspective of Marie, the new one. Yep. It's important to keep them excited, meet and greet. We have to connect quickly so that they don't go to another agency, right? And they need to feel appreciated. They need training. A quick response and that's personal and the warmer the team is, the more likely she'll continue. Right. Okay. So then Tony, our experienced volunteer, might feel lonely. Someone suggests, okay, I'm going to go with so lonely, unwelcomed. And send some suggestions here. Send birthday and holiday cards, monthly tutor cafes. Yes. Tutor recognition luncheon. Respond very quickly to emails. Absolutely. Personal responses make them feel like make him feel like he's a valued part of the team. And monthly tutor reports, quarterly tutor connection meetings. Excellent. Right. So you all have got it. And we're going to actually build even more ideas together. All right, moving on to the next one. So the first key is to find the right people. And I would love to spend more time on this, but I'm just going to leave you with some questions because we have a short amount of time. But again, we've got to look at both perspectives. And in this case, it's two perspectives. How will they work with learners is number one. Do they love teaching? Do they love people? Those, to me, those are the top issues. And I just went to a great session on, let's see, today's one's on Monday, but part of this conference on cultural humility. I recommend, if I don't know if it's available, but learning about cultural humility, cultural competency, and being aware of that when you're screening your new volunteers. We want to avoid anyone who's not going to treat our learners with respect or understanding. Of course, empathy and patience is important, and appreciation of the strength and capabilities and capacities of our learners, and definitely not looking at them with pity or anything like that. So we've got to look at how they're going to work with learners, but also how are they going to work with you? Because if you with your very limited time cannot rely on them, if they're not communicative in a timely fashion, if they're not willing to do things your way, that's going to be a problem with you, for you, right? I mean, sometimes they have a personality that's a little bit challenging and you can handle it, but maybe your colleague cannot. We definitely had those situations. We had to make it, sometimes we'd make a judgment call. I'm like, okay, it's okay. He's mine. I will deal with him. Um, but uh, but we do need to help ourselves with our selection by having some standard, clear standards, rules to keep you honest. Sometimes you're desperate. So you're like, well, even though she said this and that, and it makes me a little uncomfortable, I'm just going to go with it. It'll probably be okay. I find that it's important to listen to your gut, have standard interview questions, have a clarity about your deal breakers. So I had one of my deal breakers was responsiveness. If they applied and I contacted them and they did not answer me within, a few days or less, I might give them another try if they were really qualified, but if they didn't, I didn't even interview them. I needed people that were very responsive and showed that they were very committed. Each of you probably have things that are deal breakers for you. It's good for you and your team to identify those. Some things you can decide you can be flexible about. Like, even though we were teaching ESOL, we didn't always require ESOL training, but we did require experience. But we did require training experience or facilitation experience if they didn't have teaching experience. And sometimes you are going to have to accept someone that you're not too sure about. But if you use strategies like mentoring or teams or pairs, co-teaching, co-training, that can be a backup plan. It's also very important to have an exit strategy, which is, if somebody's not going to work out, you have a pool of substitutes. I also had a practice of never inviting people back until I'd seen evaluations and talked to staff. Your staff or volunteers, whoever is, greeting the volunteers and seeing them, on a more regular day-to-day basis, are a great resource for you. And also, I strongly recommend continual recruitment, continual onboarding, and continual orientation. So just always bringing new people in. And I guess actually the other thing, and we'll talk about this as a strategy in a minute, is when you have partners or assistants, that's a way to bring people on. So, like I had an assistant, she worked with one experienced teacher for many sessions, probably over two years, and then she took on her own class. And so that's a way to kind of build your organizational capacity. Okay, so now that we've got our people. We've got the right people. We understand their needs. How are we going to keep them? So, and they're again recognizing your limited time and limited resources. There are a lot of things that you can do to help improve your retention rate that don't take a lot of time or resources. Um, Studies of both K through 12 and adult education reveal that there's a number of factors that can influence retention. Induction and orientation. So induction is, really sort of a longer version of orientation, but basically support during the initial period of someone joining your program. Mentoring and collaboration, offering professional development, belonging and community. And people were mentioning that on the Padlet about understanding our volunteers. Acknowledgement also. Someone mentioned that. Professional respect. Opportunities to contribute to policy, administrative support, feelings of self-efficacy, feelings that they know what they're doing, that they can be confident that they are making a difference. And one that was new to me, so I'll just talk about that for a second, was collective efficacy. And that is about helping your volunteers feel part of your team, of your organization, that they are integral to your mission and that your organization, with all the tutors and instructors, will make a difference. That has one of the biggest impacts on students is when tutors and teachers feel they are capable and that their organization, that they have pride in and they identify with their organization. And it's very in keeping with these other studies. Collective efficacy, the way that you develop that is to build instructional knowledge and skills, create opportunities to collaborate and share skills, provide feedback and share results, and involve teachers in school decision making. As I mentioned, we had really high retention rates, about 90% in our program. This is with instructors, not tutors. And by the way, Pro Literacy, and this covers both literacy organizations with tutors as well as instructors. Let me think, it was 2019 was the last time they reported this statistic, 84% retention rate, which sounds a little bit high to me, but basically the way they measure retention is over the course of a year, from like maybe the start of your fiscal year to the start of the next fiscal year, how many volunteers you have. So when I left my position, I got a lot of wonderful feedback from my volunteers, and these are some of the things that they talked about. And this word cloud represents the words. I just put in all their evaluations and put them in there. But I think this one of the things that really spoke to me, especially then after reading about collective efficacy, is this first person that said, "I've never felt less than an integral part of the center." They also talked about collaborative leadership, and that was my style, which basically means, if I'm going to make a policy change or procedure change, or we have a problem, or we have an opportunity, I would ask the volunteers for their input. I would ask them, what do you guys think? You're working with the students. What do you think we should do? I also asked them to share their experiences. So often in our, we would have 3 workshops a year. Generally speaking, I would usually bring in an expert to train on something, and then one of our volunteers would present another part of the training. So based on the research I did and like reflection on my own experience, I came up with this model, and this is what we're going to work with. And yes, we're good. So, model volunteers who feel respected, capable and supported, sorry, and part of a community, feel that their work and expertise is acknowledged. They feel they can make a difference, and they feel that they're part of something bigger than themselves. And that will encourage them to stay with you. These
Anna,
things are all,
could I
yeah,
interrupt? I'm sorry. There was a question in the chat. If you
yes,
would
please.
mind, please repeating the pro literacy reported retention rate.
Oh yes, it was oh gosh, I can get it and confirm it, but I think it was about 84%.
Thank you.
And when I did, so it was frustrating trying to find something more recent. But I was able to find some reports like from different states, and there was quite a big range. I mean, some people with under 20% retention, a lot of people around 60% retention. But yeah, thank you for asking. All right, so we're going to get specific on this. But first, I'm going to just quickly, I think I've said some of these things. These are the practices that we used, and we had frequent, meaningful two-way communication. So this is not just e-blasts. Sometimes there were e-blasts, like if there's a new training coming up or new resource or something. But definitely, I had an open door, and I made it a priority to respond to the volunteers. Um, that was my first. If I go through my inbox, if a volunteer contacted me, that's what I'm going to address first. Welcoming environment, and that's all across the board, and especially staff. I think if you have any staff that are like at your front desk or answering phones, every part of communication with everyone. Everyone's your customer, as we always said. Volunteers are a customer, staff is your customer, and of course your clients or your students. Orientation, because we often usually had people join sporadically. I would just do one-on-one orientations or 2 or 3 at a time. I did not wait because I wanted to get people on board as soon as possible. I asked them for feedback, very specific. Hey, what did you think of the new attendance sheet? Is it working for you? Do you have questions? I just mentioned that invitations to present, train, or guide policy. Teacher meetings always had time for the instructors to share their own lessons learned or to ask questions. Recognition and appreciation, and this is a very personal thing. Some people love the big party that you try to offer. Some, we would do, get certificates signed by the county executive and have like, all the politicians come and shake hands. And some people really like that. Sometimes we would have try to have a performer or something like that. But at the same time, many other people didn't even want to record their volunteer hours. They're like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need anything. But so having different ways, like somebody said, birthday cards, hearing from the students how they were impacted, that might be the best way. But that's something that you'll have to figure out, trial and error. Staff debriefings, making sure everyone, and maybe they're volunteers, but everyone that touches the program gets a chance to share their experience and their input. because often it's not you that is in touch or face to face with learners or with teachers or tutors. Um, but so you need the eyes and ears of everyone, and you also need everyone to be part of that team.
Anna, if I can just raise one question that is in the chat. I think it was a
Yes.
follow-up to the pro literacy retention rate. The question is, was this 84% before the pandemic? Or
Yeah, that report was well, it was right around that time, 2019. I'm gonna try to find the I have it. I'll find the link
so
and share it.
all right. And there was a follow-up comment that we've been
Yeah.
tracking the reasons of our attrition to evaluate trends. And it's been very interesting. So thank
Yeah,
you.
that's great. You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to get a little deeper in this, and then we're going to divide into groups. Let's see, we have about maybe 25 or 28 people. So, yeah, I think we're going to divide into groups. So, if you can hop over to the Padlet, and there's a self-evaluation worksheet. And you can click and make a copy of that for yourself. And you can start to look at it a little bit. And we're going to divide into groups. So basically, we've got these three keys. They need to feel respected. It's all about feelings, right? Like we were talking at the beginning about how does Tony feel and how does Marie feel? For them to feel respected, you as an administrator need to make sure you're running a quality or organization, that your your volunteers have autonomy, that you're inviting their input and acknowledging your contributions. And sorry, they need to feel capable and supported. These things, they need to clearly understand what they're doing. It'd be ideally when they arrive on the first day of class, they know where to go. They know who to call if they can't find their student. That you offer them professional development opportunities, a mix of them, some virtual, some in person, some one-on-one, but preferably not just an email with a PowerPoint. Feeling part of a community, share the mission and help them feel part of the mission. And we talked about these things, building connections and holding regular gatherings. So if everybody, let me know if you have any problems getting access to that worksheet. And we're going to divide into, let's see, I guess we'll divide into 6 groups. And for groups 1 and 4, and this go in the Padlet, you'll see, are going to focus on how to help volunteers feel respected. Take a few minutes. I've written some of my ideas in there. Write your ideas as well. Talk about it. And you're going to have about 10 minutes in your group. And then groups 2 and 5 will be focusing on how to help volunteers feel part of a community. And groups 3 and 6, I guess I got the order. I changed the order. Sorry. We'll focus on how to help volunteers feel capable and supported. I will put the Padlet in the chat. Oh, thank you, Robin. You anticipated my action. And then if we can break into 6 groups, and get to work. All right.
Okay, I will send everyone to the breakout room. Put on your seatbelt. Here we go.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I believe I am sharing the Padlet. Yes. So, thank you all. I'm just wanted to see if you all could just shout out or put in the chat any anything that you actually take a sec. You can review what other groups wrote. Oh, not a lot of people wrote. So just share what you have learned from each other or good ideas that you found that you heard about helping your volunteers feel respected, part of a community, or capable and supportive. Okay, no problem, Ashley, about group three. You want to just share a little bit about what you all talked about?
Sure. We
you.
had, ideas around as far as feeling supported, providing just the specific resources they would need during their tutoring, whether it's lesson plans or virtual capability if they're doing it virtually, and and also checking in with them to see if their needs are being met and they feel comfortable, during their tutoring sessions with what's been provided. And then we also looked a little bit more at in-service opportunities and trying to bring tutors together to either learn new ideas or techniques or things from the community. So I think all three of us that were in all three organizations that were in our group do have meetings or social opportunities for tutors as a way to keeping them engaged and again just feeling valued and supported.
Thank you. Thank you. And I see Cheryl just posted for also, let's see, group three respected. That's yeah,
Group one.
either group one or four.
Yep.
Survey,
Phase one.
ask for ideas, suggestions, input, tutor shadowing. Yep. Excellent. Excellent. So what do you all feel is the hardest things to implement, or what surprised you about these self-evaluation questions or these three keys?
I think one
Yep.
thing that we talked a little bit about was making questions that you're asking in terms of asking for feedback, making them open-ended. So not, do you feel supported? Yes or no? Because those are pretty easy to check a box and hit submit. So kind of making them more broad and open-ended to see, if their needs are being met, and if not, some more specifics around what might help.
Thank you. How about another group? One of the ones that did respected or community. Anybody want to share?
Another idea from group two that was shared was providing opportunities for volunteers to provide feedback and really feel like they're a part of the organization because they're the ones often that are meeting directly with the learners. And as Anna, you kindly captured in the Padlet, a fantastic suggestion from Jefferson County Literacy Council with the tutor networking events, and the suggestion where you bring an instructional strategy and you take one away from the event. So a nice opportunity to connect with and learn from other volunteers and also generate some of that community aspect.
Excellent. Excellent. And anybody else? Or any questions, concerns, challenges? Okay.
In the chat, we have a suggestion to include volunteers on a monthly newsletter, share opportunities for ongoing trainings, coffee conversations once a month.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I've got my list of additional ideas, and I'm just looking to see if anybody else, if I have anything that you haven't mentioned, because you all are really right on target. One suggestion would be gathering your experienced tutors and asking them to share, what are your strategies for the tough situations? Like, for example, how do you deal with challenging pronunciation? issues, or if someone's super shy and it's hard to get to know them. That's something, how to build trust and rapport. And that goes back to the cultural humility piece and the welcoming piece. That could be challenging for some of your volunteers to develop trust. That might be one professional development opportunity. Making sure also they are knowledgeable about adult learning theory. That's gonna, I'm afraid to say, seen some former teachers, kind of use an old school approach, old school K through 12 approach, which may not be as effective. And so so it's both about, you want them to be effective in what you're trying to accomplish with your learners, but they need to feel effective and capable. Someone mentioned their time. I popped into one of the groups and I just listened a little bit, but concerns about tutors' time, because if someone's retired and they want to be able to take trips, they want to be able to, they might have to have a surgery or something like that. So respecting their time so that we're providing the professional development, but and the resources in a very clear, succinct way, so that they don't have to take a 2-day training or something like that. We have to balance, again, program needs, learner needs, volunteer needs. Being very clear, this is about respect to, very clear about what is the volunteer responsible for versus you. So for our classes, when we were in person, we were very clear, like if I think this happened like twice in 12 years. If somebody was disruptive, that was not up to the teacher. That was up to staff. So similarly with tutors, is space arrangement, finding the space to meet, who's responsible for that? Calling the student that doesn't show up, who's responsible for that? If it's the tutor, that's fine. They just need to understand, and be very clear about that. Okay, belonging. You all talked a lot about different networking opportunities, newsletter. Oh, I also wanted to say, sharing specific stories of learner accomplishments and impacts or learner messages is very, very good. Belonging, I put in the chat, or sorry, in the Padlet, Google group. We used the Google group for communication and also for sharing. We had Google Drive for sharing resources. And I think you all covered everything else, but we've got a good collection, I think, of ideas and stuff. So now I'm going to switch what I'm sharing, and I want to point out, first of all, that in the Padlet, you have at the far right, there is a toolbox with some resources that you can use. And I'm going to make sure that you have access to the Padlet after this training's over. And now I think we have a minute, yes, for you to work individually. So if you go on the Padlet, you can download this action plan and review the ideas that are in the Padlet or the things that we've just talked about. Some things are in the chat, and pick 1 or 2 ideas. It can be very small, and make a plan. Put it on your calendar. Do you need to talk to somebody? Do you need to send an email? Do you need to just schedule some time to to plan a little event? And come up with a couple things that you can do in the next couple of weeks. And let's just take 5 minutes. If you don't want to download the worksheet, that's no problem. You can just do it in your notebook. All right, I'm gonna actually start us off by addressing the question in the chat from Shannon. Could you share how to get started if you have limited time and with an all volunteer agency? All these are so important. How to dive in. Wow. Yes. I believe that these three keys are self-reinforcing. They're all related. So, in my experience, I'm going to give an example of a couple of my volunteers. One who he was there before I even started, and he's still there. So that means he's been volunteering for this organization for 15 years. He works full time in a completely different field, but he felt very welcomed, very supported, very connected. He's a very shy, introverted kind of guy, but he's also very, very committed. And he, because of how he felt, and this was through staff, through this is like wrap around, okay? Everybody involved needs to be on this team and recognizing the value of your volunteers. So anyway, he started taking classes in TESOL, and then he had a class assignment where he needed to develop an evaluation or I don't know, a student evaluation, something like that. And he said, Anna, could I do that for you guys? And I'm like, yes, you can do that for us. And that's what we were using when I left. I don't know if they're using it now, but so by investing in the volunteer might invest in you. And this is somebody who worked full time and he did this on, after hours. Similarly, another volunteer, or two of them who'd been with us for a long time. At one point, I ended up having to, it was very rare. I had to replace a whole team of the basic level, the most, basic literacy level. And I was really worried because they're the hardest ones to teach. So I reached out to these two who'd been teaching for a long time. One was taking a break, the other one was still with us. And I said, any chance you guys could train our volunteers, our new volunteers? And they're like, sure. They not only did they create a training, they wrote the documentation and they shared it so we could do it again. So I think if you, I guess I'm talking about investing in relationships. And that kind of connects to all three, the respect, the community, and the capable and supported. And once you have, maybe you choose, think of one or two volunteers that seem like they have a lot of potential. They have maybe some experience, and they may end up being able to help you even recruit other volunteers, train other volunteers, take something off of your plate so that then you can invest time in getting additional ones. I don't know. I hope that helped, Shannon. It's actually time to wrap up. I'm sorry. I went a little long on that, but I just want to see if there were any other questions or, comments.
We are
Please,
at
yeah,
time, but if
we
anybody
are.
does have any questions or comments, we can give you 1 minute. Anyone?
And
Oh,
if you made a plan, can you just raise your hand, virtually or not, if you made some kind of plan? Anybody? Did you guys make a plan, a schedule, something? You can use your reaction. Yay! Okay.
good.
Excellent.
Thank
Excellent.
you. Thank you,
Thank
Anna,
you
for making
all
space
for
for
your
doing that.
participation and for being here.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anna, especially. This was really valuable information. I think everyone got a lot out of it. So thank you for all of you who attended and participated. And we hope that you will join us for our next session, which starts in, I think 15 minutes. Is that right, team? So
Yes.
yes, at 11. Thank you. So, and that one is encouraging authentic student writing. So we really look forward to that one, and we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you.